Hi everyone, Salam Ramadhan, and welcome back to the next episode of the Uncomplicated podcast. Today we're going to dive into a topic that's close to our hearts in alignment with the holy month of Ramadan, changing perceptions. And it's amazing how to look at things from a different angle and shift the way how you think and the way that you act.
That's right, Haikal. And, we often get stuck in the way we view things, whether it's about ourselves, others, or even situations. But what happens if we challenge those views and see things from a new perspective? That's what we are about to explore today.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not just about thinking positive, but it's cultivating a mindset that will allow us to grow and change in a way that will also support us emotionally, support us in terms of how we relate to other people as well.
Yeah. So I have a story to tell. So this is about perceptions that happened to me myself. So there was one time I was riding with my wife at the back. So we were riding down the motorcycle. We wanted to exit the gantry. And then there was a taxi driver right in front of me who was stuck at the gantry. So I was like, oh, okay, let's just wait. Suddenly, this taxi driver just reversed. He reversed because I think he couldn't get out of the gantry. So he reversed and he didn't, I don't know whether he saw me at the back, but he reversed in such a way where he was fast and then it hit my front tire. And then it actually hit my side beside my bike. So basically it rubs against my bike. So my wife was panicking. She started to scream, like, why, stop. And then I don't know why I was so relaxed, even though I was hit, but I was like, okay, wait. Let's not just jump into situations. And then after that, the driver went out of the car. So my wife was pretty angry because, in any situations where somebody hits you, and how can this uncle not see you at all, right? That's the first thought that comes to my head. But when he exited the car, I saw one thing. He actually had a hearing aid. So when I honked at him, he didn't stop. Initially I thought, why didn't he stop? But then I realized that it's maybe because he couldn't hear. He had difficulty hearing, and maybe he's also very old, so maybe he had difficulty seeing. So I immediately changed my perception, thinking instead of him wanting to hurt me on purpose, but maybe because he really didn't see me. And then instead of scolding him, I said, "Uncle, are you okay?" And then he's like, "Oh, I'm okay, but are you okay?" "I'm okay, my bike is fine." And then he realized that actually it is his mistake, and eventually he apologized and he left. And then my wife just turned to me and said, "Oh my God, I felt bad." Because my initial thought is, yes, he wanted to hit us, but actually no, he really maybe was not able to hear or see me.
And imagine if, let's say, you didn't see the hearing aid, right?
Yeah.
How would things have changed, in the way of the way we react, the way your wife will react, and perhaps also the way he responds.
Yeah, right. It could have been bad. We could have created an argument, although I'm not the person who will kind of create arguments, but it's more of situation might have been tense, not knowing that, actually he was in that situation. Yeah. So again, if the perception, this kind of things is all about perspective. If I were to think that he wants to hurt me, it would have been a different story.
When you're saying that, right, it comes to mind to me this principle in psychology, which we call the fundamental attribution error. The name already
Wow,
sounds fundamental attribution error. It's a fundamental error that everyone makes.
Oh, okay.
So what's this fundamental attribution error? So let's say, right, if you are going for a job interview, right, and you are late for the interview, right, you go, you meet the person, right, what would the person be thinking of you?
Why is he late? Must be no poor time management and all
This guy got poor time management,
yeah.
right? But for yourself, what would you say to the person? What was your reason for being late?
Yeah, maybe I had something on, I helped somebody else.
That was, I mean, hopefully it's true, right?
Hopefully it's true lah.
Hopefully it's true, unless you're really, trying to bluff your way through. But that's the fundamental attribution error. When someone makes a mistake, we blame it on their character, on their personality, right? But when we make mistake, we blame it on the social situation. I do this because of that. I do this because of this. And we can see this a lot in various aspects of our lives. I think a common one would be election. People win election, what they say? Because I do this, because I can make the promise. If lose, what happened? Oh, because they cheated lah, because they do this lah, because of that. So we blame when there are things that we fall short of, right? We blame it on the social situations. But when other people, they make a mistake, we blame it on their character, because you were like that lah, right? Because you were careless and all that. And I think this would be an example of where fundamental attribution error would have gone in as well, where you blame it on this uncle who was actually, not able to hear when you were honking at him.
Yeah, right. I see. So is it why most of us, we tend to have this negative perception or wrong perception towards others just because it has always been that way?
Exactly. I think because for us, we don't know their whole story, and we don't know why they actually have that perception. So the reason why we actually have this certain perceptions is because usually we have gone through this a certain experience a number of times, right? And this experience that we have kinds of give us that message that allows us to easily make sense of the situation of what's going to happen. Because if every situation we just see it as an individual as a new kind of situation, it will be too overwhelming for us, right? So for example, if you go to let's say you go to a gathering with people, right? You will know that, okay, for guys, this is how normally you connect with them, right? You won't go to guys and go like, hey, where do you go to do your hair? Right? Do that. Because, well, that's what, through our experiences, we learn that we don't talk about that kind of things, right? So it allows us to make sense of the magnanimous amount of information that's available in front of us. So it's easier for us to have that perspective that we are just exposed to. And sometimes we are proven right. And if it's proven right, it just further entrenches this belief that we have. And if proven wrong, then sometimes you will just go like, oh, it's just an abnormal situation.
Right.
Yeah.
In a way, it's an emotional regulation for us, because technically, if we are, like what you say, because it's something that we are used to, so it regulates our emotions to accept it as it is.
Yeah, I think emotional regulation is one. I think it's also making sense of the situation.
I see.
Right? Because it's just easier for you that, okay, if you see, we have people with different types of messengers in their life. One common one will be like, oh, for example, all men cannot be trusted.
Yeah.
Right? And why do some people have this belief that, okay, men cannot be trusted because of certain experiences? It's just easier. They cannot just like, okay, one man come into my life, maybe I try this, see how it is. Then maybe another one, okay, I heartbroken, never mind. The other one, I'll give him a totally new chance. So it's difficult if you just keep on trying from ground zero again. When you have that message, it's just easier for you to just think that, well, this would normally be true. And sometimes it will require a number of disconfirmations to actually make you realize that, okay, this belief that I hold may not be actually true.
Yeah, actually it's true. I know what you say when, it takes someone to step out of their comfort zone to kind of change that perception, because it's been so ingrained in them. It's just like what you say, like men, it's all the same. And it's really hard for somebody to say, hey, actually no, he needs something to flip them around. But how do we find that something to flip things around if, let's say, we have a certain perception towards certain things?
I think for a start, we will have to look into what's the situation for that person. One is to see if this person is doing something wrong, and maybe because we're talking about the month of Ramadan, and we are, we're holding some grudges or some unhappiness with the person, maybe there are certain parts of them or certain experiences that they have that we don't know that shape them into doing that whatever they have done to you. And the other one is, what's the situation that the person is in that make them act in that way, right? So some people may be angry because, well, they have learned that I need to actually protect myself, right? If I don't, shout at people, I just don't behave in a fierce way, people will take advantage of me. So that could be why, because maybe growing up, they have had certain experiences that make them feel that if I show some weaknesses, then people won't care. People will just take advantage of me. Situations also play a part. As we are talking, right? I just realized we're talking about Ramadan. But then we are holding water, we are drinking. Right? And you might go like, this Haikal and Raihan tak puasa, you know.
Yes.
But, well, then you just, this is their trait, tak puasa. But what's the social situation is we are recording this before Ramadan, you know. But sometimes people, you don't have the full information of the person.
Yes. I absolutely agree. Now that you say it, I was about to drink water and now I feel guilty.
If you're listening this while fasting, we are so sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so sorry.
Continue fasting.
Continue fasting. But yeah, I like where you say that because, most of the time we are constantly ingrained into this specific perception of things. Like how, for example, we've talked about with previous guests, like how certain people have to act a certain way, and we don't know the full story. And usually in media as well, if you see news articles, usually they say, oh, this person, let's say, robbed a bank, and then we immediately say, oh, this person is bad. But we don't know the full story behind it. Although I'm not saying that robbing a bank is good, but what is the cause of him robbing a bank? Maybe there is something that triggered him.
Yeah.
Right? And when we immediately, judge a person, I would say, perceive things as it is, it can actually lead to negative impact.
Yeah. And I when you say that, I do have some like examples in mind, right? People coming in to see me because they have been having relationship problems, right? They're having a relationship problem, maybe having an affair, right? Of course, having an affair is not the right answer, but there could be situations that lead them to finding someone else to meet their emotional needs, because for some reason the relationships that they are in right now may not be meeting their emotional needs. But it's easy for us to just see that, okay, judge them based on their behavior, but not understanding what's happening behind that. So it's important to also look at, well, maybe we may not be able to look through their whole perspective, but, well, sometimes it's also be helpful, I guess, to give them the benefit of the doubt if it's needed lah. Yeah.
I see. Okay, yeah. So you mentioned about clients meeting you about, relationship issues. Yeah, it can actually stem from the perception.
Unmet needs.
Yeah, unmet needs and all that. I think I face it too, because when you have a certain expectations that you think that it should be that way. On the other hand, maybe the other person did not voice it out, and then eventually it leads to the negative perception. It's just like how, for example, if you come home and then you see the house in a mess, you might think that your spouse is not doing anything to clean the house, but maybe your spouse is busy with work, or maybe busy, the kids are playing, like what I think you mentioned in one of the episodes about actually the house is in a mess, but because the kids are having fun. So it's a negative perception thinking, oh, the house is in a mess because the kids don't want to keep the toys.
Yeah, I think that there is that that shift in me, right, in that perception as well. Because again, the experiences actually shape you and how you see the things that's happening around. So I grew up in a family. My mom was generally a housewife for most part of my childhood. So when I grow up, I wake up, there must be food on the table, breakfast, right? And so for a huge part of my life, I felt that, I wake up, there must be food. If you don't have, right, this is child neglect. I must call MSF. And, why my parents never feed me. But then when I got married, it was a bit of a shift, because when I moved in with my in-laws, they don't serve breakfast every day. I was like, oh, this is wrong. Like, what? But after a while, I realized that, but in their family, they don't serve breakfast, right? So of course, there were certain unmet needs for me, right? But I don't have to expect people to serve that to meet my needs. I then learn to meet it myself.
Yeah.
So this shifting in perspectives, because it's easy for you to just see it from your own lens, but different people have different lenses.
Yeah. I want to bring back to because I know media plays a part. Of course, media kind of shapes how society thinks. And if you were to look back at the 1970s or maybe 1950s or even before that, where, the Raja, kings and queens of our Malay generation, if you watch P. Ramlee movies, they will always have this Raja where somebody says, Tuanku, he and he did this. He's a bad person. Immediately the Raja will like, bunuh dia. Derhaka, bunuh dia. Immediately kill him. And he, literally kill him without even looking at what happened, why it happened, without even consulting him, immediately capture him, kill him. So I think it has become ingrained in our society to somehow have a direct approach to a situation rather than understanding the situation before we have an approach. So how do we change this? How do we as things goes, as things change, generation change, how do we inculcate a society where we can perceive things in another?
I think it will start with being aware of how certain viewpoints or perspective that we have is actually a bit too rigid, right? And how that rigid kind of thinking may impact our life.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you have that very rigid thinking, it will come off in a certain way. Well, it could mean that you will just become very angry, you'll be judgmental, you might have unhealthy relationship with people. In the month of Ramadan, you might be holding grudges against people.
Yeah.
Because to you, like, I'm the one that's right? The other person is wrong.
Yeah.
But maybe to the other person that there is a reason that you don't know, they engage in that way. So when you have that inflexibility in your thought, wonder how does it actually impact you, right?
Yeah.
And does it impact you in just one person or with other people that's around you as well?
But it takes a lot to be self-aware, isn't it? Because I don't think immediately like, oh, yeah, my perception is what caused this and this. It takes a lot more to be self-aware. How do you get that started?
I would say one, when if you are too rigid, you get feedback from people, right? People that, yeah, this is the way I think. You cannot every time think like that. You cannot think like that, right? And if there's more than one person who tells you that, maybe there is some truth in that, right? The other one, if there is something that
Jen 5 bintang kembali lagi. Khidmat pasangan suami isteri SQ Rauda memang bagus. Memenangi banyak anugerah Propnex, urus niaga HDB terbaik, penyenarai eksklusif terbaik, penerima anugerah Platinum. Hubungi ejen 5 bintang SQ Rauda dan Pak Nas.
That negative emotions that you're holding for a while. And you realize that, well, it's because of this thought that you have, and it affects you in one way, more than one aspect of your life, right? Then you might realize that, it's actually not healthy for me to hold this belief, and so I know we are going very broad here on what this belief could be, or this perspective could be, but if it's really impacting you and it shows that, well, it affects my relationship, it affects me at my work, then is there something else that I need to get changed here? Yeah, it could mean that there is some blind spot that the person have, or that you may have, that you may need people to actually help to peel, be it through a psychologist or even to your friends. I think it just starts with friends, right? What do you think about this, right? What's your opinion? Sometimes with me, with my clients as well, I'll just say, hey, if you think about this, right, this is your perspective. For example, like all men cannot be trusted, for example.
Yeah.
I know that's something that I work on a lot with my work. All men cannot be trusted. How about you do a survey? Do a survey with the people that you actually can trust, and what do they think about this? Right, and of course, you will find that there will be a spectrum. In most viewpoints, right, there would be some kind of spectrum in opinion, because there isn't actually right or wrong. Even when you say that the right say, oh, derhaka,
Yeah.
I think there will be people who would go, well, there needs to be some law and order.
Yeah.
And to the king, like, well, no one steps above me. Then we need to quash any rebellion or whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's how I deal with it. Right? So, well, speak to people around you. Maybe you can conduct surveys, find out what are the other opinions that's out there as well, and see whether you are just being too rigid with this perspective.
Right. Do you believe that anyone can change their perception through practice? Or is it like a one-off thing?
Well, it would require practice, right? Because it's just easy for you to go back to
The old way of doing things.
right? Because that's the norm. That's your default mode. So if you try, right, and then you realize that, hey, I'm going back, and you once you have that awareness and you still go back to whatever that you're doing, you realize that, hey, I'm going back to this, right? And whatever, and just as I mentioned, the negative impacts that it has in your life would still be there, right? And then you can go, well, let's try to find that flexible approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think because for anyone who is out there listening to this and watching this, it's really important for you to, practice changing your perception towards something better, so that you don't fall into the rigidness of thinking. But on top of that, Is a question for you, Haikal, is having to change your perception towards something similar to thinking positive about something?
Not necessarily. Because so in psychology, there's many types of approaches in working with clients, right? And the most popular, the most researched one, I'm sure many of you will have heard, is cognitive behavior therapy. So what's cognitive behavior therapy? We find what is the belief, right? And how does this belief actually impacts their behavior, impacts their emotions. So let's move away from the like all men are bad or whatever. Maybe we can say about that, well, bad things will happen to me, right? So there's this like pessimistic,
Right.
No, if things are good for a while, then it wouldn't last because bad things. always happen to me, right? We have
Very common belief.
another previous of our guests also talking about that, right?
Yes,
The
yes,
relationship
yes,
after a
yes.
while, then bad things will happen.
Yeah.
So then we identify that we don't change that belief to be, no, good things will happen to me, because that's not true as well. So that's why it's not positive thinking, but we are trying to find that balance, right? So bad things happen to maybe perhaps the psychologist will work with the client, right? But it could be like bad things happen to me, so do good things, right? So you have that balance, because if you think that, okay, bad things always happen to me, the good things doesn't last, then you will always be in anxiety. So I mentioned just now about how there will be how it impact you in certain aspects of your life. So if you think that bad things will happen to me, you will feel uncertain with your work, you will feel unhappy with your relationships because people will like leave you or whatever. So then be okay. What's that balance? We're not going to say that, oh no, good things happen to you. Do whatever. Like you ask to borrow money from me forever. I'm sure you return back to me because good things happen. No, we are not asking you to go to the other side. But what's that balance in thinking that will be beneficial for you?
I see. Okay. So it's more of not to just think, okay, I believe that good things will happen to me, but at the same time being more safe to think also that there might be, something to not think all the way that good things will happen to me, but it's
Correct.
more of like
So okay, maybe I'll give you a personal example for myself, right? So I played football when I was young. I really enjoyed playing football, and at age 20 around there, right, I tore my ligaments. Right? I tore my ligaments, and the doctor said that if you want to play football again, right, competitively, you need to go for surgery. Of course, I was 20, right? My Manchester United career was ahead of me. I'm like, I'll go for this surgery, and I went for surgery. And after I got that surgery, I was afraid to play again because I had that perception that I'll get injured again. Because the whole experience of getting injured, going through the rehab was very painful for me. And I had this mentality that if I play, I'll get injured. And I get injured, equal pain. So I avoided playing football for a long period of time. You see? And it's not going to change to me going like, I'm going to play football and it's going to be okay. No, it took me 5 years. Slowly I realized that, hey, it's affecting me because I was gaining weight. I was not active. So I decided that, okay, this is affecting me. I want to find something that I like, and eventually it led me back to football. So I got back playing football in my early 20s. And of course, that time I wasn't a psychologist yet, but I wasn't going to be changing my perspective. Like, I'm going to play football and nothing's going to happen to me. But I'm going to play football, but I'm going to take steps to minimize the chances of me getting injured.
Right.
So that likelihood of me getting injured, getting hurt again is there, but I'm willing to take that risk if needed be. And that's what's within my control. If I do get injured, at least I've done what I can.
Yeah, I see. I like that. That. Instead of thinking, I will get injured, I will not go for it anymore. Instead, you'll be like more careful, knowing that, hey, I'm still going to play. I might get injured, but at least I'm taking steps to prevent myself from getting injured. It's more of like a safety net to say. I think that's a good way to practice your perception.
Correct. Yeah. Because if you're just going to the other side and go like, oh yeah, no one's going to hurt me, every man can be trusted, like that, you will possibly get hurt, right? So what will be that balance that would kind of like benefit in your life and allow you to move ahead in the manner that you want to as well?
Yeah, I want to add on to what Haikal has also mentioned about, asking around whether your perception is, correct or whether it's aligned to others, is because personally for me, I also had because before I got married, it's very used for me, in terms of how I was being raised in my family. And then after I got married, I now shift house to my wife's house, and live with with my mom-in-law and all that. So it's a totally different family, and it gets me very uncomfortable to look at things differently than how I was being raised. And of course, there's always this initial thought where, this shouldn't be that way. That shouldn't be that way. You know, because I was raised in such a way where I don't think certain things are supposed to be that way. And then as I go along, I realize that, hey, actually the world is round and the world is huge. And everyone has a different perception of what is right.
Yeah.
If I were to go to another friend who was raised in that kind of family, in another kind of family, they will say that this is how it's being done. And then if you go travel across the world, like how, you know, for example, our culture, to see, let's say adults in America, at the age of 20, they've already moved out of their house. And then when they hear that we Asians, we still, our parents have to be at 30 plus, it's like, it's something wrong with us. But that's how it is for us. To us, that's okay. That's the perception. But our thoughts are different. But we cannot, put the perception of, let's say, for example, someone who still stays with their parents as somebody who's not doing any good for themselves. It could be because their parents might need that, or maybe they just want to stay with their parents until they find time to finally move out. The world is huge for us not to think in just one way.
Yeah, and I'll say that, as long as your perception doesn't hurt other people, doesn't hurt yourself, right? Then generally that's fine, right? Because if it's hurting other people, then of course lah. But yeah, if you people staying in their parents' home versus people staying in their own home, I think both have their pros and cons. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Do you think that when we develop certain perceptions towards another person negatively, it's because we're overthinking?
I think I would say if we have a negative impression of other person, potentially fundamental attribution error is in place, right? Especially if we are judging other person, because we don't know the other person's full story. So that hopefully will help, right? If there's anyone of you there, you're holding grudges against someone, wants to move ahead, and maybe even repair the relationship. Because of course you have your view. The other person also perhaps they have their own perspective as well.
That's true. Yeah, because I was thinking of cinetrons. Indonesian cinetrons, right? I mean, if you guys watch cinetrons, there will always be this particular scene where the mom comes in, and then after that the mom asks, who is this girl? And then the girl is not even the girlfriend, and they say, oh, ini adalah kawan rakan saya. And then immediately the zoom in effect will happen. Kawan? Friend? Is it girlfriend? He wants to marry her. That kind of perception comes in. And it's negative, it's not even right, because the mom didn't even ask properly. So I think for us, especially because we're living in reality, try not to think of things that way.
Because I was saying just now about how there is a lot of information. We are trying to make sense of information. Now, a new girl comes, right? Let's say the boy brings a girl to the home, right? Then what's the mom supposed to do, right? Find this person's IC, find what's the purpose, right? Is it true? Can I check your messages to see is this really your purpose and all that? There's so much information that we have to sift through to really find the accurate answer. So it's just easy. Okay, this is it, right? Cause new girlfriend or whatsoever. And there's something that happens a lot. My family, I think a lot of families as well. When we bring someone of the opposite gender, especially, right, to our family, to the family members, okay, confirm already, right? Because you break up, everyone asks, I thought that one confirmed already. And a lot of, of course I passed that, but a lot of people will go that, but that's how it works in the family, right? If you bring someone, it's more or less confirmed. Because easy what, right? You don't actually have to declare and so on. It's just easy for you to just sift through all the information and go, okay, this is the lens. You bring someone in, confirm.
Yeah. So I guess, like what you say, the fundamental attribution error. Distribution error. That's Excel work. The fundamental attribution error is the one that actually shape our perception. But we can also practice to, change that so that we don't have to think of things in just one linear way.
Yeah. And I think even if we talk about scientific knowledge or research information or whatever, the information also change. It's not just about our perceptions, but things like exercise, things like diet, what's the how much what kind of food you're supposed to eat. It all changes over time as well, right?
yeah.
So nothing actually is like set except for maybe like scientific facts and stuff like that. But there will be progressions, there will be changes, and it's also important for us to keep up with it.
Yeah, that's true. Science facts always change. So yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. Nothing actually. I think change is the only constant. Yeah. So anyway, Haikal, to wrap up, do you agree that by adopting a flexible mindset over a long period of time can actually be good for our health, relationship, and even daily life?
I think it does, because when you have too rigid, I'm saying too rigid here, and it's too rigid, and you are trying to see life in a way that is in this rigid kind of lens, it will lead to negative emotions. It will lead to anger. It depends, right? Anger. It could lead to anxiety. It can lead to sadness. Well, anger because you're like, no, it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
Right. So that why do
Why?
Yeah. Why? No food on the table. This is emotion. This is neglect. Right. So
Nah.
But now I find my own food. So we will be, it will lead to these negative emotions, and it's not helpful for us.
Yeah.
Right. And the other one will be, it will also impact you maybe with people, with relationships, and mainly why? Because we have this belief and the other person have a different belief.
Yeah.
Right. And like we mentioned just now, no two, unless both are very extreme, right? That in between, there is usually some correctness at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Haikal, for sharing your inputs on changing perception.
Yes.
And I hope that because this episode is, in the month of Ramadan, it's always important for us to, have a more flexible approach, mindset, and perception towards things. And I hope that this month can actually help all of us to practice that, because we must always think of the good things.
Yeah.
And hopefully this will also help us grow in terms of our self-care, self-perception, self-love.
Yeah, and I hope this will benefit you, because this is also a month where most of our Muslim listeners, you'll be reflecting, right? Trying to see how you can improve yourself, and maybe having that shift in mindset to something that is more balanced might be beneficial to you. And if I mentioned just now about holding grudges to people and going to Hari Raya, well, this could also help to mend the bonds and build the bridges again with whoever that have drifted away from you.
That's right. Yeah. If you look at us wearing long sleeve and you think that we are cold, well, actually you're right. That's the correct perception. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the Uncomplicated podcast for this episode. We will join you guys next week for more insights on self-care and growth.
Yep, so true. And so we hope today's episode will inspire you to pause, reflect, and maybe see things in a new light. And remember, every situation has multiple angles, and it's up to us to explore and maybe see whether they are right or not.
Yep. And for now, let us all uncomplicate the complicated. Bye.
It's uncomplicated.